Hi, welcome back. You're on Chapter 13 of the audiobook of Pirates of Savannah. Please remember you can buy a commercial-free version of this over at lupolilink.com.
Chapter 13 Tattooed Women and Soulless Men. The sensation of drowning snapped Patrick back into reality. Ringing flooded Patrick's ears, and light was painfully spilling into his eyes. He rolled to his side and began violently to cough up water from his mouth and nose. When his heaving chest began to relax, Patrick's eyes adjusted to the light and the silhouette of Archibald Freeman. He was shouting questions.
Come on. Wake up, man. Can you see me? Do you know where you are?
Archibald? Where am I? What happened? I'll tell you what happened, a guard hissed. You assaulted a member of His Majesty's army. You need to thank Jesus I was able to subdue you in your drunken state and not have to kill you. The guard was standing by Archibald, sneering at Patrick. Your owner and I reached an agreement. You're now free to go.
Thanks for letting me take him without getting your superiors involved.
Archibald stated humbly as he helped the wobbly Patrick to his feet. You need to talk to your servant about his mouth, the guard warned. Those kind of words are quick to get a man killed around here. Archibald nodded and led Patrick away from the guard as quickly as possible. The guard had apparently left Patrick where he fell. He had kicked Patrick off the road until he was out of the way. How did you find me, Archibald? Patrick asked when they were out of earshot.
I went out looking for you when you did not return home for second sleep. I asked the night watchman if he had seen you, and he escorted me back to your body laying on the side of the road, but I could not wake you. I had to bribe the soldier to let me fetch you in the morning.
Archibald explained.
But what really happened was you owe me 10 shillings for the bribe I had to make.
I'm sorry, Archibald. Patrick apologized. I'm just so sick and tired of being owned by other people. I boiled over when he started demanding answers of me. I was stupid, but not drunk. I told him I was no slave, and that he had to talk to me like a gentleman. Patrick rubbed his woozy head. And the last thing I remember was him smashing my head with the musket. Archibald laughed.
You're stupid, lad, but I can respect your dumb courage.
As Archibald helped Patrick walk, he continued to explain that working for the king means never having to say you're sorry. That the joy of enforcing arbitrary rules and decrees over another man attracts the worst kind of scum to the job.
These kind of men have a dark hole in their soul they try to fill with violence and a sense of authority. They're addicted to the rush of power they get by bending another soul to their will.
He continued.
I've heard of people who work to enforce the king's vicious orders will sometimes regret the evil they do. In fact, some of the people with the best grasp on liberty are the ones who escape the system they served. They know in their hearts that it is undeniably evil, and vow for the rest of their lives to work against it, begging for redemption.
I think I understand, Archibald, but all this freedom stuff is new to me. It'll take a while to clear my mind of past ideas. Patrick responded, but I really need to go home and sleep.
Well, you can't work looking like this anyway,
Archibald sighed.
And we gotta go wash the blood out of your hair and beard. You know you're gonna have a black and blue face for a few weeks and aren't going to be so pretty for April Sky's lovelies.
Maybe you should take me back to April's to wash up. I don't mind how I look. Archibald smacked Patrick in his sore face.
I think you've had enough of the Red Lady for a while. But you will be seeing April tomorrow.
When the two blacksmiths returned home, they saw an old Indian with a collie dog sitting on one of the stumps in the yard smoking hemp. The men greeted each other and shared a pipe as Patrick stumbled to his hammock in the shed.
How are the mules?
Archibald questioned.
They in good health. They ask about you.
The old man laughed.
I need to know a place where we can bring these cannons discreetly to the coast. Do you know of a place?
Archibald questioned.
Yes, There was a sacred land to my people.
The Indian's face darkened.
The English took it, gave it a new name. Oglethorpe call it Jekyll Island now. It has been taken many times and given many names by the Spanish, the French, the Spanish again, and now the English,
Archibald added. He knew this island, and knew it had an English occupant named William Horton appointed by General Oglethorpe to set up a military post to protect Fort Frederica on St. Simon's Island.
Last I heard, he built himself a home on that island,
Archibald added about William Horton. He reasoned,
We'll have to come in at night so as not to be seen. Let me make map and show you a good place,
Li Go-chi suggested. Archibald yelled into the house, and Heather appeared with a quill, ink, and a scrap of hemp parchment. Although the Indian could not write his own name, he was excellent at drawing maps, and in just a short time a very detailed map was ready.
Pick up guns. 6 moons pass, then meet here.
The white-haired man pointed.
Very good. I'll meet you outside of town at dawn,
Archibald confirmed. Both men locked wrist, and the Indian and the hyper-orange canine quickly departed into the marsh.
Wake up, Patrick,
Archibald yelled at Patrick. His face had swollen up while he slept, and he was now very black and blue. When Patrick was roused, Archibald explained,
I need you to deliver this map to April Sky. I do not want to risk my marriage by being seen there again. Also, I'm going to hire Isaac for another week. I'll expect you back here in an hour or so no dawdling at the Red Lady.
Patrick's ears were still ringing, and he had a horrible headache, and his jaw throbbed. But he would not let his master down after he had saved him from the redcoat. He took the map, nodded, and made his way down the street towards town. Although he was in pain, Patrick's mood improved greatly when he knocked on the door of the Red Lady. The door swung open, revealing April smiling, but quickly her face became concerned. Welcome to the... Good God! What have they done to you, man? Come in. April blurted out an invitation. When Patrick was inside the house, April touched his face gently and asked as he winced, Did Archibald finally have enough of you laughing at his expense? Patrick had spent most of his remaining energy on the walk through town in the sun and become very dizzy, and suddenly fell to the floor of the Red Lady's foyer. April clapped her hands, and in seconds a group of scantily clad women arrived. April instructed her ladies to pick up Patrick and carry him to the bed. Ladies, clean him up. I want these wounds tended to as well. Tiffany, I just got some new yarrow plants in. Wash one of them and bring it to me. Do you understand my English? The madam ordered. Tiffany nodded in affirmation and disappeared to find the yarrow plants. The next thing Patrick was aware of was that he was fully erect, even though a wet rag was painfully dabbing at the weeping, open wounds on his face. He smiled as he was tended to. He considered going back home to smash up his body just so he could come back here again to the Red Lady, simply to receive this kind of attention. The French woman, Tiffany, arrived with a white flowering stem with fingers of green leaves running up it. Ah, Patrick thought deliriously, they're now bringing me flowers. The madam quickly broke the flower off and instructed Tiffany to brew a tea with it. April then chewed the leaves until the juices ran from the corners of her mouth. She took a ball of the chewed green out of her mouth and applied it to Patrick's cuts. The tattooed woman repeated this process until Patrick's cuts and bruises were covered with this green, gooey pulp. The madam then ordered the whores out of the room and closed the door gently. She turned to her patient slowly and stared at him with compassion. She returned to Patrick's side and carefully brushed the hair from his face, whispering in his ear, Your face is so scarred from a harsh life. You look like a beast, a wolf that had been in many fights. From now on, I will call you my wolf. Patrick reached into his pocket and handed her a map. He set us off some sound on the side of Jekyll Island. Be ready to pick up the shipment in 6 days. He wants to do it by moonlight. Well, you will be coming with me early morrow, my wolf. We need to prep the ship tomorrow and be ready to sail. We'll sail around, Jekyll, and fish for a few days so as not to draw suspicion, the kind Trollope explained. She continued to detail the plan while Patrick's eyes and mind wandered on to April's cleavage. He drifted down her body and appreciated her fantastic figure. Patrick imagined April had to be a top-dollar prostitute in her younger years. She had a very attractive face, but time had worn her some. When she smiled, deep wrinkles of crow's feet lined her eyes and lips, revealing her true age briefly. He had not noticed how striking her green eyes were until the moment she stared at the injured man with so much care. But even the stunning beauty of her eyes did not compete well for Patrick's attention when half-naked women were scrubbing and caring for Patrick. April stopped speaking for a moment and waited for Patrick's attention to return to her face. Patrick blushed slightly, but she smiled as she spoke. "So that is all the details you need to know right now." Patrick gingerly rubbed his eyes. What time do we leave tomorrow, and where do we meet again?" April crossed her arms under her breast, frustrated and sighed. "Are you deaf, my dear? I said sunrise, here, while you were looking at me tits." She stood straight up and combed the hair out of her face with her fingers as she broke into a pirate's brogue. "Christ, men, you're all the fucking same. You can't keep your cocks in your pantaloons long enough even to make one round of silver." Patrick was taken back by the sudden accent. He had no words for April as she continued. "Sorry about me unladylike tongue. Me whole self comes out when me soul grows afire. Be here at dawn morrow, and come battle ready. And here, take an eyeful with you." She squeezed her cleavage together and seductively leaned over his pulp-covered face. The harlot left her breast close to Patrick's face while she gently cleaned the green goo off with a rag. Patrick did not mind the slight stinging as he enjoyed the sight of April's breast heaving as she breathed. The madam was graceful, sexually charged, and an utter assault on Patrick's senses. When she finished, she kissed him on his bruised cheeks and waved goodbye as she exited the room. Patrick was in no hurry to leave and enjoyed laying in a real bed. He had not lain on a mattress since childhood and was melting into its softness. He almost fell asleep when a Nubian woman named Rose entered and offered to help him up. He noticed how pretty her smile was now that she was not in her birthday skin again. The scantily clad black strumpet showed him out the door of the Red Lady. He stared at the door that had just been closed in his face, and he again thought, "Damn, I'm so sick of being poor." Patrick hurried back home, cautious to avoid any soldier he saw on his way. When he arrived at the Freeman home, Archibald could be heard clanging around the shed, uncovering his secret stash of weapons. When he noticed Patrick's presence, he smirked.
"You seem to lose all sense of time when you go to the Red Lady. Why is that, Patrick?"
Patrick grinned. "The lighting's bloody awful. It is tough to find my way out."
"Control yourself, lad," the Scot warned. "Nothing but trouble, poverty, and cock diseases find a man who does not control himself."
Archibald put his hands on his belt and gave Patrick a stern look. When he felt his apprentice had understood the gravity of his words, Archibald continued.
"Best get your weapons ready. The delicate madam runs with the real scum of the sea. Do not trust anyone you talk to, not even Miss Skye."
Archibald handed him a sawed-off musket, a dirk, powder horn, shot, and a large Scottish broadsword. As the weapons seemed to pile up, Patrick exclaimed, "By the Lord's mercy, is there something you're not telling me? What kind of ship is this?"
"Have you not figured out that she's a bloody pirate, lad?"
Archibald questioned.
"She's going to use her smuggler connections to sell those war irons. Only wanted men would take the risk of buying stolen British cannons. They would cut your throat and take everything you bring if you present yourselves as easy targets."
Patrick gulped. "Pirates?" Archibald could finally see the young man was taking his words seriously. Satisfied, he continued.
"Go to Heather and get some rations, enough for 2 weeks. Then say your goodbyes and go sleep off your punch head."
Patrick was ready to pass out, but he stumbled his way to Heather in the kitchen. She smiled and already had a bag of food packed and ready for him. "You're going to make such a fantastic wife to a lucky man one day," Patrick complimented.
Not very likely.
She then called out to her father in the yard, asking if she could go visit Prudence and Mariana. Archibald stepped into the doorway and told his daughter that she could go, but only for 2 hours. Heather would need to return to help her mother with the evening's cooking. He also insisted that she avoid any redcoat she spotted and that her brothers were to escort her. With that, she protested, "Father, I am 19. I am old enough to go alone." Archibald crossed his arms and nodded toward Patrick.
Child, take a good look at Patrick's face. You're not going anywhere alone, and that is my decision.
With that, Heather pouted and stated she was going to go find the twins. Patrick returned to his shed. Archibald was now gone, and the inventory was back in its place. He passed out with exhaustion on his hammock, with dreams of the tattooed woman swimming in his head. The indenture woke up before dawn, swatting the bugs crawling on his open cuts. He was anxious about the morning's planned adventure. He dressed quickly and strapped his arsenal of weapons on his body. He took a peek at the rations Heather carefully packed for him and noticed cornbread, and wondered how she kept getting so much of this wonderful manna. Patrick found Archibald already in the yard, fully dressed and getting ready to leave.
Patrick, if we are more than 2 days late, do not wait for us. Assume something went afoul and return to Savannah immediately.
He then called for his family to see the men off. The entire family quickly assembled by the fire pit. He informed them that he was expected to take a short trip and will be home in 2 weeks. The same rules still applied. The family was expected to be inconspicuous while in town, and that they would shut in early. When he finished with his instructions, he commanded his family with a smile and open arms to hug their father, saying, "I love you," to all of them. When he was done embracing the family, he turned to Patrick and solemnly stated,
If something ever happens to me, I expect you to honor me by caring for my family. I ask you to protect them and love them as I would. Do you accept this proposition I charge you with?
Patrick was honored. "I already love your family, and consider them to be my family now. I'll watch over them. You have my word." The family embraced Patrick in an emotional moment. Patrick shed a tear. It was the first time since the day his father died that he felt part of a family. He had become so detached and guarded throughout the years. He had lost so much. For a brief moment, the Freeman's embrace broke through his emotional defense, and he was overwhelmed. The blacksmiths finished saying their goodbyes and departed on their way. Patrick watched as Archibald met Isaac on the street and then disappeared into the marsh. He was worried for the men's safety and knew trying to pull a cannon through an impassable swampland was a brutal task. Doing the trek was difficult enough, but staying invisible the entire passage would be near impossible. Patrick collected himself, and his thoughts turned to his own mission. He was about to set sail with real-life pirates. He headed down to the Red Lady and knocked on the door. After a minute, April answered. Not wearing her elegant red dress Patrick was accustomed to seeing her in, she was now wearing a tight red and black corset with a short dress that only hung to her thigh. She had tight black stockings that ran into her tall red boots. She'd be arrested in the streets of Savannah for vulgarity if she was noticed by a redcoat. April also had a red tricorn hat with a huge red parrot feather adorning it. Black gloves bellowed outward over her wrist. One yellow and one black sash hung off her biceps. She was carrying an extremely fancy blunderbuss, and a large cutlass blade was hanging from her red sash around her waist. Jammed in the front and back of the sash were 4 small flintlock pistols. Patrick stared at her and wondered how she fit all these weapons onto her slender frame. "Are you just going to stand slack-jawed and stare at me tits again?" April questioned with her pirate's brogue. "Well, you can look at them all you want as long as you pick up me bags and follow me," April instructed. April instructed Patrick to be very careful with one particular bag, making a point that the bag was not dropped or tossed. But after a moment, she decided just to carry the mysterious bag herself. Patrick snapped to service and collected the enticing pirate's pile of bags. It seemed like an excessive amount just for 2 weeks. The blacksmith's indenture did take her up on her offer and stared at her cleavage spilling out of her low-cut top while they made their way to the river. Staying away from well-traveled areas, the two walked for a half an hour down the coastline until Savannah was out of eyesight. When they finally emerged from the woods, Patrick and April gazed upon two tall ships that were much smaller than the Robin. On the shore, there was a man waiting in a small jolly boat.
"Well, Captain K.T. Brewer, I'd not expect that you'd be greeting us yourself. What an honor."
April spoke with a hint of sarcasm.
Arr! Aye, lass. I had not laid eyes on you in a long time.
The salty sea captain replied.
I wanted to come welcome you to me ships myself.
"Your ships?" she questioned angrily.
"The Mary Read is mine. You're just holding it. Don't ever forget that, Captain Brewer," she threatened.
Pardon me, lady. Yes, you be right. Your catch is the Mary Read, but the Black Hound, she be mine. I won that trade and catch from you in that game of dice. Don't forget it,
the captain countered.
Enough with the cordial pleasantries. Let me sail you over to the Mary Read. You have four of me most trusted crew waiting for you.
The pirate smiled mischievously as he bowed, courteously removing his hat.
"Let us cast to the waters before we draw too many eyes."
April agreed. The three boarded the small jolly boat, and the captain quickly rowed them out to the ship. Patrick got an eyeful when April climbed the netting and vaulted onto the deck. It was not until Captain K.T. Brewer started scaling the rope that Patrick caught a shining white ankle in the sunlight. After he ascended the net, he tossed down a rope and told Patrick to tie the little boat off so it would not drift away. He did as he was instructed and awkwardly climbed the netting with April's bags, throwing his weight off balance. Four exotic-looking crew members helped lift the bags off his back. He ungracefully fell over the railing and splayed onto the deck. The entire crew laughed at his clumsiness.
"I see you're doing quite well for yourself. You got a new fancy hat. And oh, look at that fancy new leg. Let's me see it,"
the Madam Captain commanded playfully. The old salty captain pulled up his pantaloons.
I traded it in for that wooden leg a few months back when I had this one made for me in the islands. It is cut from one elephant's tusk. Look at the beautiful scrimshaw work I had him engrave. I thought it would make me less of a Jonah to my men.
The ivory was carved with a picture of dolphins, turtles, and a black cat for good luck.
I know you're going to be very mad, but I could not find a black cat for your vessel. I figured me scrimshaw cat be a good substitute. I do have some extra turtle bones in me pocket if you want to use them to ward off evil spirits, the captain offered.
"Unless you plan on leaving that leg behind on my ship, it's not going to protect me. You know it's terrible luck not to have a black cat aboard a ship when a woman be sailing with you. I won't sail without one." "It is a good thing I predicted your incompetence," she insulted.
Carefully, April took the mysterious bag off her back and reached in. The bag fell to the ground, revealing her holding a black cat at arm's length. She held the cat to her chest, and it purred loudly. She stroked the cat behind the ear while she warned,
"This be me cat Reagan. She is named after the character from King Lear. 'Twas the daughter who wanted to kill her father and sister and take the kingdom for herself. This cat has got the same angry attitude. I advise you to mind her. This cat does what she pleases and sleeps where she likes on this barkie. Do you understand me, crew?"
As if on cue, the cat hissed at the crew and jumped down to inspect her new ship. The weary crew nodded in acknowledgement.
"If some evil falls on this feline, I will kill each and every one of you,"
she sternly warned, pointing her finger at each man. A horseshoe was still secured to the mast to keep storms away, which pleased April. The cat was on board to make sure the crew would come home safely from sea. All that was needed was rum to be poured onto the deck and ocean, to offer the sea gods a bribe for safe passage. A crew member scrambled to find some rum. When the bottle was procured, April wasted no time and christened the deck and sea. When all the rituals were properly observed, she instructed Captain K.T. Brewer to ready his black hound to sail soon.
I have the map, and you will follow me. We will fish for a few days to seem inconspicuous, so to make it look good, she ordered.
Arr! Aye, Captain Sky. I still not be sure why you use that name out here, but I respect your wishes.
Captain Brewer called as he climbed down to his jolly boat.
Captain Brewer, I want you to come back later and entertain me guest with some tales. Raise the sails, lads, and pull the anchor. We be going fishing,
the Madam Pirate shouted. A day had passed, and Patrick Willis was relaxing on the deck, watching pelicans in the afternoon sunlight. April sat down with him and offered him a mug of rum. The scarred-faced man thought it was extremely odd that a woman captained a ship. It was unheard of, and he could not figure out why the crew of men would follow a woman captain dressed so vulgarly. He wanted to know more, but he also saw that the small crew respected and feared her. In time, maybe he would find out why, but for the moment he thought it would be best to hold his tongue. Patrick also noticed April's voice and mannerisms change depending on whom she was talking to. If it was about business or whoring, she was very polite and educated, but when she talked to her crew, she spoke like a salty sea dog. So what is Captain Brewer's first name, and what is the story behind him? Also, why is his voice so gritty? He asked as he sipped his mug of rum.
His voice is like most of us who gave our lives to the ocean. A lifetime of salty air and rum is hell on your voice box. As far as his name goes, I've sailed with that man for many years, and I still do not know. He refuses to tell anyone because he says when you know someone's full name, you have power over them. It is much easier to cast a spell or a hex on them when you know their given name. So he only goes by the initials K and T. He has been going by his initials for so long that I don't think he even remembers what his given name is.
She smiled at her own joke and continued.
He's the only captain I know more superstitious than me after his encounter. Everyone called him mad, and he could not get a crew to respect him. But I believe it really happened, as he said. I'm the only captain I know that will sail with him now. Ah, speaking of him, here he is now.
Captain K.T. Brewer vaulted over the deck with amazing grace considering he only had one working leg.
I be here for your rum. Surrender it to me, lass.
The old man laughed.
We will surrender the rum, only in exchange for a story,
the Madam Captain offered.
Arr! That be a deal, Captain. Which tale would you like me to spin?
I want you to tell the story,
she snapped back. K.T. Brewer became visibly upset and grew deadly serious.
No, Captain, please, not that story.
Good sir, you have already accepted a deal for me rum. It will be a curse if you break your word.
True, I cannot break me word. Let me at least have the rum first,
salty man said as he sat down. April ordered her crew to bring him the illegal spirit as the one-legged man told his tale. The crew fell silent, and it seemed like every wave in the ocean quieted just to hear his story. A cold and creepy wind suddenly blew across the deck as he spun his tale.
The year be 1690, and I was a young man sailing with a Danish crew on a barkie called the Zeeberg. We were in southern Atlantic waters when we found her adrift. She was a Portuguese merchantman called the Marialva, and it had been lost at sea for 3 years. It left West Africa with a hull full of slaves, but it never arrived in Brazil.
He started sweating and turning white as he continued.
Our captain ordered us to board the vessel and salvage anything of value. When we boarded, me crewmates swore they heard noises coming from the cargo hold. I told them it was impossible, that the Mary Alva had been adrift for 3 years, and nothing could have been alive. To prove it to them, I opened the cargo hold and descended down, and the crew followed. I knew something was not right by the horrible smell in the hold. When I lit my lamp, the moaning started. The slaves were still chained to the floor and violently trying to break loose. Most of the crew screamed and scurried up the ladder.
Get us out of here! Get us out!
But I wanted to stay and help the hungry souls. It was not till I got closer did I see it.
He stopped his story, and the salty sea dog started quivering like a child. Patrick handed him another drink. Here, take mine. Tell me, what did you see down in that cargo hold, Captain? The old man took a sip and nervously looked back and forth. He took a deep breath to settle his nerves.
When I got an eyeful of the slaves, I realized they were no longer of this world. They were not dead. They were not alive either, trapped in some state somewhere in between. They be soulless men. Every one of the slaves had a bite-sized piece of flesh missing from their necks. Their eyes were all white and sunken into their skulls. I pissed me leg and ran up the ladder. Me crew was so scared, they had left me behind and were rowing away. With a running leap, I landed on the jolly boat, but shattered me leg.
He continued while rubbing his ivory tusk leg.
When we got back, the horrified crew told the captain what was really over there. He believed us, because he had never seen such a hardened crew so afraid. He opened fire on the Mary Alva and sunk it into the drink. Only one other body was found by my other crewmates who had searched the rest of the ship while I was in the hold. No lifeboats were aboard, and only the captain's corpse was found. He locked himself in his own chamber and blew his own head off.
He stared vacantly at Patrick and reflected.
Matey, I have thought about those poor souls every day. I can see those undead creatures pulling the chains and moaning as they reached for me. To think of the horror of what those poor souls saw. Maybe whatever infected them moved through them one by one. As one slave slowly turned, the others could do nothing but watch. When he finished changing, he turned and bit the next slave chained to him. Those cursed souls watched as the infection slowly moved down the line of people. Every day those images be burned in me mind. I can still hear the moans and wails in me sleep.
The young man felt a cold shiver up his back as the frightened old man drank his rum. April grabbed Patrick's hand to snap him back into reality. Thank you for sharing that. Our agreement has now been satisfied. Drink all the rum you like, the Madam Captain announced.
Lass, it seems my whole bloodline has seen supernatural activity. Let me tell you the story of my great-grandfather and what he saw on Roanoke Island, North Carolina. It will make your skin crawl right off, the salty dog warned. In 1587, me kin was there on that island. He witnessed 11 English colonists go searching the mainland for food. 3 weeks later, only one terrified soul returned. He told the colony that the party was attacked by savages who were impervious to shot and blade. He described them as having putrid, worm-ridden skin, just like the creatures I saw.
He ordered another full glass of rum and continued. The survivor said they battled the savages, but only one of the 11 men died. But 4 of the others were badly ripped up. Those 4 died the next day and were buried. Their corpses rose from their graves and ate their former party alive. Only the survivor got away. Me great-grandfather told me that the colony magistrate did not believe the survivor and had him hung. The magistrate ordered a second party to go recover the corpses, so heathens would not desecrate their remains. Out of that second party, only 5 mauled and scratched up souls returned. They vindicated the previous survivor, recounting being attacked by undead savages and members of the last party. Within hours, the 5 men died and rose from the grave. The local Indians knew what this terror really was and arrived in the town as the corpses were attacking the colonists. My great-grandfather hid in a bush as he watched Indians from the Croatan Nation round up all the colonists and the infected and burn them alive. He was the only survivor to tell the tale of why the first English settlement in the New World vanished overnight. Nobody believed him either. They thought he was cursed, just like people think I'm cursed. Patrick was bright white with fear, and his skin was ice cold.
I think this young man has had the piss scared out of him. That'll be enough. Go teach me crew a new shanty, she commanded.
The frightened old sea captain did as he was ordered and shuffled over to the rest of the exotic crew. The next day, the Mary Read sailed slowly, stopping occasionally to drop the nets into popular fishing holes. Patrick enjoyed the slow pace, but found it hard to catch a nap on the deck after hearing such a frightening tale. The ocean breeze was wonderful, and he was thankfully free of the blood-sucking bugs who usually feasted on him on the mainland. April found Patrick staring at the seabirds and kicked him on the side, ordering,
"Well, I'm glad you're enjoying your luxury voyage like a king, but you've got work to do."
"I think your crew has everything under control," Patrick boldly stated. "I'm your escort, not your crew."
"My escort?" she mocked with a laugh. "I did not realize I was deserving of my own private escort. I really have made it to a queen's life now."
"Well, I am a dandy of an escort, and you're welcome for your queenly life," he joked back. "I know this is the kind of courting you've always dreamt of." Patrick put his arms behind his head, reclining, and commented, "You know, we'd both get beaten by redcoats for our tongues."
"So is that what happened to your face, my wolf? You dared break his royal majesty's ridiculous laws?"
The Madam Captain queried. "I guess so. I can't keep up with what's a law and what is not. They are so arbitrary, and people who claim they represent the king's law just make up their own laws on top of the king's. So many damn laws. How could a person know them all?" The blacksmith pondered. She solemnly replied,
"My wolf, it is not confusing. There is only one law. Do you know what that is?"
Patrick shook his head no. She sat down next to him, so they were touching shoulders.
"The only law is obedience. That's all. All law breaks down to obedience and consequences. Do what the king and his men say when they say it, or suffer their wrath."
"That sure does make it simple." The scarred man smirked. "You are wise for your many years." She elbowed him in the ribs, and her voice changed.
"You bastard! I'd be a hell of a catch. Men would throw themselves in the mouth of a sea monster just to hold me hand."
"If you want to believe that a woman of your age could command that kind of admiration, you go ahead. I know it is important to exercise your mind at that age." The man mocked.
"Fuck you! I am too desirable. I'm the most wanted lady in Savannah. You would die in lustful pleasure if I fucked you. I am still as young as I ever was."
"How old are you?" she challenged. Patrick had to stop and recount. It had been many years since someone cared enough to ask him his age. He had forgotten how old he was.
I think I'm 27 or 28. I really can't recall.
How many years of life have you seen? He challenged back.
I am but a lass of 20 years. She smiled back, exposing the wrinkles around her eyes and lips. Do you have a wife or family?
I'm still an indenture for the next few years. Sadly, I'm not even allowed to court or call on a woman. Patrick frowned.
What? That be pure blasphemy. You've not wet your wick with a woman the whole time you've been here, poor man.
I'm embarrassed to say, no, I have not. In fact, I never have in my life, he shamefully confessed.
Now I know you be lying to me. You're 27. You should have many children by now. I know you at least fuck some whores. You don't have to lie to me, my wolf.
She pushed. No, not even a whore. It makes it very difficult to find a woman when you grow up in a prison full of men, Patrick added. She looked sympathetically at the pain and embarrassment in his eyes as he shared his dubious past. She reached out and held his hand in her black glove.
I have no children. I spent my early years whoring. It ruined me mothering parts, I suppose. By some miracle, I stayed clean. But many harlots I know cannot have children because of all the diseases they carry in their privates, she shared. After a moment of staring at Patrick, April finally offered, Do you want to change that, my wolf? Are you ready to spill your seed into a woman?
Patrick was completely taken back by this upfront offer. He tried to speak, but just babbled nonsense. Taking Patrick by the hand and leading him below the decks, April stated, I assume that is a yes? Come on, let's go to my private captain's chambers. Before they made their way, April called out to the crew, commanding them not to bother her unless the ship was under attack. They were told to make their way slowly to Jekyll Island, keeping an eye out for Spanish ships, and to continue fishing. After lighting a lamp in her cabin, April aggressively pinned Patrick to the bed. She made him watch as she slowly escaped out of her complicated outfit. Patrick gasped. The rumors were true. Tattoos completely covered April's skin. Her ink-filled breasts flickered in the lamp as she undressed him.